Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain. And Spain looks set for some big changes, with the Prime Minister yesterday announcing a new project for a new country. But more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise, and thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now, let's get into the news. And as I said, Prime Minister Sánchez yesterday announced a new project for the country. He was in Barcelona giving a speech related to those pardons that the independence leaders are going to receive shortly. And as we can see from this headline, he announced a new project for a new country with separatism. Pedro Sánchez did not go to Barcelona yesterday to justify the granting of pardons to the thousands of constitutionalists who in 2017 saw their rights violated by separatism, but to defend the measure of grace as the first step to redefine Spain territorially together with the pro-independence supporters. The president of the government burst into the Liceo to present as irrefutable the premise that reconciliation depends on the release of Oriol Junqueras and the rest of the promoters of the 1st of October independence referendum. Far from demanding repentance, the chief executive proposed that the Catalan secessionists should participate in the redesign of Spain to build together a new project for a country. Democracy is open to a multitude of projects, he insisted, knowing that Junqueras will demand in person the holding of a referendum on independence as soon as he sits down at the negotiating table on the conflict. So some hyperbolic rhetoric there yesterday from the Prime Minister in Barcelona, and I think the central government has finally come to the conclusion that the problem that Spain has with Catalonia is not going to go away. So is it time to build a different project for Spain with separatism in mind? Time will tell. Now, with the health crisis here in Spain having improved a lot in recent times, we're now being told that the Delta variant of COVID-19 could worsen the health situation in coming months. As we can see here, Delta variant begins to spread, threatening EU's COVID progress. The Delta coronavirus variant that swept the UK has become dominant in Portugal and appeared in clusters across Germany, France and Spain, prompting European health officials to warn further action is needed to slow its spread. While the new strain, which first emerged in India, still only accounts for a fraction of the total coronavirus cases in mainland Europe, it is gaining ground, according to a Financial Times analysis of global genomic data from the virus tracking database GSED. It accounts for 96% of sequenced COVID-19 infections in Portugal and more than 20% in Italy and about 16% in Belgium, the FT's calculations show. So the Delta variant, according to the Financial Times, starting to work its way across Europe. So with the threat of that Delta variant hanging over our heads, what are health officials here in Spain saying about this potential threat? Well, Spain's chief health expert, Fernando Simón, was quoted as saying that there may still be upturns, but they will by no means be like those of the winter. Data from Monday continued to give cause for optimism across the country. Since Friday, 7,209 new cases of coronavirus have been reported, 958 fewer than a week ago, and there are now 3,764,651 confirmed infections in Spain since the start of the pandemic. In a context such as this, Fernando Simón has ruled out the possibility of a new wave like the one experienced in winter, although he has indicated there could still be upturns. We know that until we have immunity of more than 70%, it can happen, but we also know that these increases cannot be like those of the past. There is no way it can be like the winter, and the same applies to the UK, he said. So some optimistic words there from Mr. Simón. Yes, it is possible that cases will go up, but the situation won't be anything like it was in the winter months. Now, Mr. Simón was again in the headlines yesterday, but this time he was talking about the future of mask wearing in Spain, and he opened the possibility of a return to mandatory masks outdoors if infections rise. The director of the Centre for the Coordination of Alerts and Health Emergencies, Fernando Simón, has pointed out that if the number of infections rises significantly, they are considering the possibility of making the use of masks compulsory again outdoors. The relaxation of their use is expected to come into force from this Saturday. It may happen, but I don't think it will. The measures that are being taken now and that have been taken throughout the epidemic to control transmission or to favour a normalisation of life should not be set in stone as permanent. They always depend on the epidemiological situation and the evolution of the pandemic, he stressed. So probably better not to get too accustomed to our newfound freedoms when it comes to not having to wear a mask outdoors here in Spain. because as we just saw, if infections go up, that mask rule will be brought back in. Now, a quick update on the digital COVID passport here in Spain, and apparently Spaniards are very, very eager to get their hands on that passport. As we can see here, travel fever spreads in Spain. Over 1.5 million COVID passports issued in just 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks remain before the EU's digital travel certificate, also known as the COVID passport, comes into force across Europe, and Spain has already issued more than 1.5 million of these certificates, according to data provided by the European Commission. So people here in Spain eager to get their hands on this certificate, so obviously people planning trips around the European Union this summer. Now, some good news related to Spain's soaring electricity prices, and it is that the government will approve this Thursday the reduction of VAT on electricity from 21% to 10% until the end of the year. The government is going to approve this Thursday in an extraordinary Council of Ministers meeting a reduction in VAT on electricity from 21% to 10%, according to what sources from Unidas Podemos have confirmed to RTVE in the first instance and sources from Moncloa later on. As confirmed by Moncloa, the reduction of VAT from 21 to 10% will be approved for vulnerable consumers regardless of what they have contracted and market prices. For all those who have contracted power of up to 10 kilowatts, provided that the monthly wholesale market price is above €45 per kilowatt hour. And at the same time, 7% of the tax on the value of electricity production will be suspended during the third quarter of this year. So a bit of a relief there for some consumers when it comes to paying their electricity bill. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain. We can see that the accumulated incidence rate for the last 14 days is now down to 92.5 countrywide. There are still 2,832 COVID patients hospitalised around the country, and there are 770 COVID patients still in ICU. When it comes to the autonomous community with the worst health data here in Spain, Andalusia, we can see that the accumulated incidence rate there is currently at 173.5, and this autonomous community is now the only autonomous community here in Spain with a high risk status. When it comes to the vaccination campaign, we can see that just over 30% of the population have completed vaccination, and just under 49% have received at least one dose of their COVID vaccine. Now, Boris Johnson has made headlines here in Spain today, and it is because he has warned that it will be a tough year for travelling. 2021 will be a difficult year for foreign travel. This was the view of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday during a visit to the National Institute for Biological Standards and Control in Hertfordshire, when he also confirmed that the UK government is considering scrapping the quarantine requirement for vaccinated travellers entering the UK. Currently, people entering the country from amber-listed destinations must spend 10 days in isolation at home, while those arriving from red-listed countries must spend quarantine in a government-designated hotel. So a tough year for travelling, according to Mr. Johnson, and I imagine that Spain has no chance of making that green list anytime soon. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Brian. Hi Stuart, good to hear you enjoyed Benidorm. Thieves about wherever you go. Unfortunately, especially on the internet and London. Being a retired expat from England, I think it is good that Spain deters the English lagerlouts that in the past have painted a bad picture of the ordinary English person looking for a behaved, relaxed holiday. Great informative videos and a must watch every evening. Brian La Manina, Alicante. Yeah, Brian, thanks for the comment and glad you liked the content. I did enjoy my brief holiday to Benidorm. Always good to hit the coast and get away from this part of inland Spain, and it was good to enjoy Benidorm without the usual hordes of tourists, and definitely a lot different from the other couple of times that I have been there. And when it comes to deterring lagerlouts, as you call them there, I mentioned a comment on yesterday's video in which somebody in Tenerife, I think it was, said that the local government down there and the tourist board is trying to get rid of this type of tourism, this alcohol type of tourism that you can find in some resorts around the country, places like Benidorm, Magaluf and Tenerife, as I mentioned yesterday. And I must admit that this type of tourism does give a bad reputation to people from countries like the UK. But fortunately, this type of tourism is minority tourism here in Spain, but unfortunately, it is very visible. One here from Rama. Thanks for another helpful video. I would like your opinion as you've been living in Spain for a long time. As far as employment, I'm planning to be in Spain for a year on a work holiday visa from Canada. I'm learning Spanish and hoping to find work in Spain as an avenue to speak as much as possible, and was thinking of jobs like waiting tables, hospitality, student-type jobs, not in English. Do you believe it would be possible to find employment in those areas? I'm not worried about the pay as I have savings and can do remote work if I want to, but I really want to work on my speaking while there. Any feedback would be helpful. Yeah, Rama, thanks for the comment. I don't think it's impossible to find a job in these sectors here in Spain if you want to work in a bar, restaurant, coffee shop or something like that. I think it's going to depend where you are. I think your chances would improve if you went to some of the more touristy places here in Spain, places where they're looking for bilingual waitstaff. The coastal areas, Valencia, Alicante, Malaga, the islands, the Canary Islands, the Balearic Islands, I think your chances would improve if you went there. But in other parts of the country, I don't know what your chances would be like. Here in Madrid, for example, I always see signs in the windows of bars and restaurants looking for waitstaff. So there are jobs in this sector, but I don't know what the competition is like. So give it a crack and I hope it turns out for you. One here from Jose. Hola Stuart, I'm a little confused. On one of your previous videos, you mentioned that Spain is a very safe country to live. But on this one, you made a comment that only one person tried to rob you like it's a very common thing. Thank you for your videos. They're very helpful for people like me planning to move to Spain in the near future. Yeah, Jose, thanks for the comment, and I will stand by my claim that Spain is a safe country. In my opinion, it is a very safe country, especially if you compare it to a lot of other countries around the world, especially when it comes to violent crimes. However, Spain does have a problem with one particular type of crime, and it is street crime, and this is very prominent in areas where there are a lot of tourists. If you go to the center of the big cities here in Spain, for example in Madrid, Barcelona, places where a lot of tourists congregate, you have to watch out for thieves because they want to get their hands on your belongings. And that was the problem that I had the other day in Benidorm, given that I look like a foreign tourist and I stick out like a sore thumb. So although I consider Spain a safe country to live in, you have to be careful in busy, crowded tourist areas. One here from Barry. Was there something different with your video technique today, Stuart? The images were changing sporadically from a natural to a bluish hue. Yeah, Barry, thanks for the comment, and another couple of people also picked up on those changing images. Yesterday was a very difficult day to film because the light conditions were changing constantly. One minute there was sun, the next it was overcast, and it was also very, very windy, and I had to have a windshield on my microphone. But today the light seems to be a little bit more constant, not changing as often as it was yesterday. So hopefully the image quality will be a little bit more even today. But if anybody has any tips on how to record outdoors with changing light conditions and what to do when it comes to white balance, let me know in the comment section. One here from Free Speech. Drunk Australian tourists in Bali give the Brits a run for their money. I never want to experience that again. Yeah, Free Speech, thanks for the comment, and you're right, drunk Aussies in Bali definitely give Brits a run for their money. And sorry that you had to experience that when you were there. And it does seem to be a problem that we have in some English-speaking countries, for example Australia and England, that some people need to look for these alcohol-fueled party holidays. And as I said before, it is a very ugly type of tourism and it leaves a long-lasting impression on some people. And finally, one here from Chris. Not all Brits going to Benidorm are young, letting their hair down too much. Many older types, I'm in mid-60s, who just enjoyed the laid-back atmosphere and of course the year-round sunshine. I'm sure we will be welcome back. Great update as always. Yeah, Chris, thanks for the comment, and you must have spent a fair bit of time down there in New Zealand, mid-60s or mid-60s. Just joking. And you're right, not all British people that travel to Benidorm are young and out of control. There are a lot of people there, like yourself, mid-60s, who are looking for a relaxed holiday by the sea, looking to chill out and enjoy that Mediterranean weather. And I also have no doubt that that type of tourism will always be welcome in Spain. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.